Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Not an R. So, this has been quite a difficult episode to set up. So, we did my MOT. Well, I say we did. I got my MOT done, and they told me that the front brake pads were running low. So, first thing I did was, obviously, if we're going to change them, we need to upgrade them. So, apparently that's easier said than done on these cars because, essentially, because it's a facelift 2 litre, but not the R, and the discs aren't as big as the R, but they're not as small as the 1.4s. No one seems to know what size discs they are. So what I ended up doing was measuring them and then ordering via Demon Tweaks, because, to be honest, they're super reliable with everything that I've ever bought from them. And they set me up with some EBC brakes. I think they're called turbo grooved because they've got like a V shape on them, and some blue stuff pads because apparently they wear for longer than their yellow stuff pads, but they give the same braking. I don't know, but either way, we're going to get to it. And I've never actually changed brake pads or rotors before, so I'm going to bring you along for the ride, and it is going to be a full tutorial on everything that I did. So hope you can learn something today, and let's get this car stopping better. All right, let's get to it.
So I went for EBC blue stuff pads because apparently they're as good as the yellow stuff, but they last a bit longer for a daily driver. And I also went for grooved discs. Here are the codes if you want to order them for yourself. So you're going to want to chock your back wheels and jack up the car. So you've just got to take the dust caps off and make sure you've got your locking wheel nut to hand. I actually took the centre cap off because I was wondering if I was missing something, but it actually just rusted to the face of the hub. So just give it a kick and it should come off. With the wheel out of the way, first step is to take off that pin. Just use a screwdriver to pop it out and obviously mind your eyes. I actually turned the wheel of my car to give me more room to work on it, and took this opportunity to sort of make sure that the disc would fit, because obviously I don't want to take it all apart and then it not fit. To remove the caliper, you have to take off the 2 dust caps at the back and then use a 7 Allen key bit to undo the 2 bolts that are inside of it. These are clamped down quite hard, so just make sure that the Allen key is nice and seated before you start wrenching on it, because we don't want to obviously round anything off. They are quite easy to actually undo, however they are quite hard to get out because the bolt hole is obviously quite long where it's got the dust cap over the top. So, you know, just keep going with it and just try and fish it out of the hole. With that out of the way, the caliper should come off, but just don't let it hang. You have to make sure that you don't put tension on that brake hose. To give it somewhere to rest while I was working on taking off the carrier, I took the pad out and slotted it back on into its original place, because obviously now it'll be loose where it isn't wedged between 2 pads. As you can see, this car was in desperate need of some new pads because they are wearing so thin. The next stop on our list is to disconnect the electrical connector for the pad sensor. This is pretty straightforward. Just unhook it first, because then you have a little bit more room to work. So just get a screwdriver in there, push down and pop the clip as shown. So with all of this done, I thought I'd pull out the pad and then we can push back the pinion and check the seals. Thinking about it now, using my clamp was a great idea, but I probably should have done it on the pad, because obviously I don't care about the pad because we're throwing that one away, rather than doing it directly onto the pinion. But we live and learn.
So I just kept going until it got really tight, and that is the piston all the way back in. Now it's time to get the new pads in, but we're going to take this off first.
So this was a step that I completely forgot. You need to block off the disc using a screwdriver between the disc and the carrier, because then you can undo the locking screw. If you don't do that, you end up rounding it off like I did. So don't do that. Make sure you block it off and then you can crack on. The next stop is to take off the carrier. So you've got to crack these massive great bolts on the back. They are very tight. I would recommend an impact because it is very hard with a hand wrench.
With a wrench persuasion, that one comes out, and oh, rust goes everywhere. And then this bottom one also comes out, and that is the carrier off. Now we just got to get the disc off.
So hopefully at this step your disc will just come off. You can put a lug nut in it to give it something to sort of bash against. Use a rubber hammer to start with and then escalate from there. To be honest, it took me about 30 minutes to try and get this off. I was hitting it with all kinds of hammers and nothing was getting it off.
Okay, this is the biggest victory of my life. Taking this off, because look at that. That was so rusted on there, that was ridiculous.
So to save me this pain again, I'm going to clean off all the rust with a wire brush.
So we've gone for them. I'll give you the code, and look at those. So I think this, I think this is supposed to point towards the back of the car. So this is going to go on that side.
So definitely give them a clean because disc rotors are coated in something for transport. So just use some brake clean, give it a wipe, and then they're ready to go in the car. Make sure you do front and back because I forgot to do that, to be honest. So now we're at the place where we're going to put a little bit of copper grease on it. I'm going to put some on the hub face because I don't want to have to deal with getting that rotor off ever again. So this next step of putting the disc back on is harder for me because I had to drill out the screw, but make sure that the hole for the retainer screw lines up and all of the bolt holes, and then plop a bolt in to hold it there while we put the carrier and the caliper back on. So I gave the carrier a quick clean up with a wire brush, and then we're going to bolt it back on and start reassembly. So I tightened the bolts down for the wheel all the way just to make sure that it was out of the way, ready to torque down the carrier bolts. Now you have to get the big boy torque wrench out because these bad boys need to be torqued down to 190 Newton meters.
So as a comparison, I think this is one of the worst ones, or this one? No, this one? Yeah. So there's so much pads left on it. This one's, I think, the worst. Look at that. And then this is what we're replacing it with. So look how much more meat we have on that than that. It's bloody ridiculous. Look at that height difference. And we've gone for some blue stuff pads. So this side is the side with the sensor. So we need that. And we need one of these. The other ones are for the other side. So that needs a bit of copper grease on it, which I'm going to do, and then I'll put it on there.
So you want to copper grease the bits and pieces that are going to obviously have movement, so they're going to slide backwards and forwards, so basically just to prevent them wearing out. And then I put a little bit on the back as well, just because obviously that's what the piston will push against, but obviously you definitely don't want any on the disc or on the material of the pad itself. And it's just the same principle with the one that goes into the piston itself. We just want to copper grease the bits and pieces that will move because we don't want them scratching or wearing out anything on our carrier or on our caliper. And the final piece of the puzzle is just make sure you don't trap that wire, because obviously that, you don't want it pinched and burning out when the disc is rotating.
So you want that wire to come out of that hole so that when it's there, it's not being pinched by the caliper. And then we just got to bolt this up.
Next, we've got the caliper sliding pins. So I put a little bit of copper grease on them just to make sure I can get them back out nice and easy, but do not get it on the threads. Then you just want to get it in and get it started. And then after it's started, torque it up to 30 Newton meters. So once torqued down, you just want to replace the dust caps over it, and then just make sure the disc will spin freely. And the last step is just putting that spring clip back on. So with the rotors and pads changed, remove your lug nuts if you had to put them on. If the retainer screw's in, then obviously just leave it, take it off, and then we just have to get the wheel back on, which for me would be a struggle because of the fact that I had to drill out the retainer screw, but for you guys would be super easy. And the final step is torquing your wheels down to 120 Newton meters. Then we're going to move on to the other side. You should actually torque these whilst on the ground, because then you'll get a better reading of what the actual torque measurement is. I usually like to do it in a couple stages. So I'll do 60, 90, 120 Newton meters, and also make sure you're tightening up in a star pattern and put those dust covers back over the lug nuts when you're done. And that is your discs changed. Now we've got to do the other side, but you don't really need to do that. You know how to do it. Just rinse and repeat. So here's just a quick time lapse of me doing the other side. And if you have made it this far into the video, I just want to take the time to say thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching the content. And I really do appreciate all the support I've been seeing on my videos and my channel recently.
And that concludes today's episode, guys. So, you know, as per usual, we can't just do something easily. The retainer screw had to snap and then we had to drill it out. But, you know, now I feel confident enough, I guess, to do it any other time, unless I completely screwed something up. And if I did, then please leave a comment down below, as this is my daily driver. So I hope you learned something today, guys. I've left the codes for if you have a facelift 2-litre Sciroccos and you need the part code, because then you know it will fit, because to be honest, it was a big risk, because obviously discs and pads aren't cheap at the best of times, so you don't want to order them and then them not fit. So please like the video and check out some of the other Not On R videos. I will see you in the next episode. Cheers, guys.